Hello, class. I hope everybody's holding in there okay. We're revisiting assignment 8. I already went over a bunch of early submissions, the people that were going for the extra credit points or who had turned it in before I'd moved the deadline for assignment 8 back and therefore received extra credit points. Now I'm going over all of the newly submitted files that includes any submissions by the people who submitted earlier, saw the video and thought, no, I think I could do better, and submitted a new assignment. So let's get in there and we'll start talking about this colorized assignment. So I've got these open. We'll go through all those. I've got the assignment up here. Remember, you're supposed to assign a color profile to sRGB IEC 6, 1966 2.1. And keep in mind, sRGB is by no means in any way the best color profile. It's just very, very, very old and generic one, which is great because I don't know what equipment you guys are all on. So by having this as the profile, it essentially guarantees that your monitors can support it regardless of how old your monitor is or what's going on with your setup in your system. This is everywhere. This exists. This is supported. You'll be able to see it as long as you've got everything calibrated correctly so that, you know, middle gray is middle gray in your working environment, white is white in your working environment, black is black in your working environment across all three channels, red, green, blue in this case, since we're doing RGB, and you embedded this color profile, what I see will be the same thing that you saw. Of course, I say that as the sun is setting, so my natural light is going to be a little off, so let's not worry about that too much. All right, the big one that tends to cause some people some problems is they forget to double check that they're within the size range before turning in. Remember that the minimum size that you could have is 4 inches by 6 inches. I did not want anything bigger than 8.5 by 11 inches, so you can't have any variety between those. I've seen some that were like 4 inches by 11 inches long. That's fine. It didn't break any of those rules. I don't want a pixel per inch smaller than 150. I really don't want any larger than 300. You can work at whatever size your heart desires, but I would not recommend working lower than what you're going to be turning in. So we'll be looking at that. Keep in mind, I want a 3-layer PSD file, which means, you know, just 3 standard layers. So with that all in mind, let's take a look and see what we've got. So here we have skin tones, which I've warned, I know many times it's very difficult to do skin tones, and the student did a good job. They've selected a fairly grainy photo to work on, which is tricky. So let's start at the original, and keep in mind again that I am looking for 3 layers when everything is said and done. And they will be, got them in here somewhere. Here you are, original photo and black and white, and you should have colorize. So they should be named that, original photo, black and white, colorize. So let's take a look. We have original, and again, that should be original photo, which that is not. It should be black and white, got that, and it should be colorized. So missing a little bit on there. So we've got a purposefully grainy image of a person doing what looks like a yoga pose or a dance pose. We have this guideline here. If you ever need to get rid of those, there are a couple ways to do it. So if you do Control R or Option R on your keyboard, then you'll bring up your rulers, and that allows you to produce guides. This is one of the ways you could do it. Also allows you to get rid of guides. You can simply grab the guide, drag it onto the ruler, and it will go away. The other way that you can do it is under View, I believe. Yep, Clear Guides. So if you go View, Clear Guides, boom, it will get rid of all your guides. Let me get rid of these rulers. All right, let's go down this thing. So you've got, let's see what color profile you've got embedded here. I'm going to go to Document Profile, and it's sRGB IEC 6 1966 2.1. Well done. And your size, you are 8.5 inches by 11 inches at 300 pixels per inch. That's what I'm looking for. Good job. We've got black and white. Looks like there might have been more you could do with that. Let me take a quick look at the histograms through level. Yeah, I would probably have pushed this a little bit, but only in the lighter areas. How would you do that? Well, the answer is to use curves, because curves allows you to target specific areas and not others. So you could open it up in some of the shadows. Let me refresh that. Open it up in some of the shadows. Notice that there's some areas you can clip in just a little bit It should be okay. Well, maybe not. Let's not do that. I'd probably darken that a little bit right in the highlights and open up the shadows just a bit. That way, and let's take a look at it before and after. You have it will be a little easier to colorize. You can see some of the shadows starting to pop up where the muscle I can't say that word, where the muscles are, there we go, where the muscles are attaching to the bones, and where the bones are moving around. You can see all that made a little clearer, a little more clear. So I would have gone in and done a few adjustments using a curves on that, just to go in. And again, curves is how you can target specific areas rather than the overall image. So we'll just check that, and let's go to the colorize. All right, so we've got the 3 layers, no more than 3 layers. They're almost named correctly. All right, are there any grays in here that do not look like they are supposed to belong? Well, I would say that we've got a little bit happening in, but not a little bit, not too much. This graininess is really what's creating that effect. I don't think that it's really that there's much of a gray streak. It's just that this particular image has that grain, which is causing the effect of a gray inside of it. The layers are all in normal mode. Indeed, they are. Good. The colors are contained within the bounds. Yeah, where something's being colored, it's not like bleeding between things. So, for example, hair and stuff doesn't have, there's not hair ending up inside of skin. That's really what I'm looking for there. There we go. Colors are under control. Nothing is blown out. There's a color range present. Large areas are not the same. There is, but it's not as strong as it could be. And what do I mean by that? See in this area how we have this beautiful gradation occurring around the neck and in this in the back and even in this arm. All that's wonderful, and that's showing just care and time put into it. But then you end up as you go through some other areas where you get like these streaks happening. You want more like what's happening in the legs, and then you have this big flat area in the arm that could again be more like the leg. It's inconsistent in the way that it's being handled. It goes from just expertly done to let's just put that there, and there we go. So you got to watch out for that. I suspect, given the way that this was done, it was most likely done with a brush. So the fastest way to have fixed this, as I press the wrong key on my keyboard, the fastest way to have fixed this particular issue is actually just make the brush start softer. So using a lower hardness, you can go in and you can take care of these streaks and things, and you don't want to use super high opacity. You want to go in just a little bit, and then you just start bringing that in and out and in and out. And by using a low opacity and a very low hardness, those streaks will start to disappear, which will clean stuff up. So I've flattened this arm. Why is that happening? Well, it's in normal mode. Let me go ahead and toss it into literally anything else. So if we brought it over to even color, but I'm actually going to try multiply on that just to get a little bit of darkening. You can see that it's starting to take shape. I'd have to sit here. It's a slow process. And you just keep working on it, keep working on it, keep working on it, and it will start to blend together, which is why you get such gorgeous work as the leg in here. But when you have a harder brush, you'll end up with kind of the streaks going on there. So that's what's happening with that. All right, and so there are a few flat areas, but nothing too bad. Contrast was not lost or was improved by adding color. Yeah, I'd say that overall. Well, let's take a quick look. So we've got the original. We did lose some contrast. Specifically in here, like I was saying, going in at that very first step on the black and white with the curves would open up those shadows and allow you to not lose that contrast. So you got to watch out for that. And then we've got any necessary adjustments made in black and white. No, I was missing out on that. Okay, so that's the whole thing. This was a very, very, very difficult photo to work on, but you did it. You got through. I think a little more time, a little more saturation would probably have been good as well. Going in here, maybe even just edit the color balance a little bit. Get away from that kind of gray. More like that. so that we could get a brighter skin tone, match it a little bit better. So before, after. And that's just with color balance. So just a small adjustment of something like color balance after the fact can really improve the overall work. So there are a few adjustments and that took like 5 seconds. There are a few adjustments that can be done to really make this pop. So a couple more passes on this, I think you'd have a really stellar image, which is saying a lot because this is a really hard photo to work on. And I think you were rising to the challenge. I think just a little more time on it and you would have been good to go. We could also come in, not levels, we could also come in with a curves adjustment after everything else is done. And just go in, and start doing some on-screen adjustments at the different locations to kind of bring in a brighter or a darker person. I've made her a tomato at this point. So or him? I'm not really sure. There we go. And hit the blue up. Okay, so before, after. So you can start to hit a point where it has a more vibrant set of colors. And speaking of vibrant, let's actually try some vibrancy. I'll just add vibrance. And we'll just... There we go. Crank up the vibrance. Okay, so that's 3 adjustments there. Color balance... curves and vibrance, and let's see how it was before. Wherever it was before. There it is. Before, after. Before, after. So it can be a really good idea to come in on this after the fact and just do some color adjustments. You've got all those tools in your belt. So there you go. You can still see that it's less saturated than the original image. So, yeah. But anyway, that's my advice. That's where that's at. And let's go ahead and move on to the next submission. I'm actually going to pause the video real quick. I think we skipped A. I think I have it somewhere in here, so I'm going to pop over to A. All right. See you in a second. All right. Talk about vibrant. So here we have something going in the opposite direction. And just real quick, let's check these. We've got... untagged RGB. So in other words, you did not apply the color, or if you did apply color profile, you didn't save that time. That kind of thing happens. All right. Past that, it is the correct size. So you're within all the boundaries on that, because 4 inches was the minimum going on there. So well done. You have original photo, black and white photo, and colorized. Perfect, perfect, perfect. But you shouldn't have this smart filter that should be applied to this. This shouldn't be a still non-flattened layer as you saw before. It should be just the 3 layers. No, nothing fancy going on with smart filters or smart objects or any of that. It should just be 3 plain layers. All right. So let's take a look at the original photo. Yeah, this is in need of colorization. Let's take a look at the black and white. I think you got a little dark. It'd probably be a good idea at this point to come in with something like curves. Remember curves? Curves is great. It has the on-screen adjustment tool, so you can just grab an area and increase it. And then in all the other areas, you can just drag that back down so it leaves them alone. And in fact, this is a good point to use the pencil tool. We can isolate everything else, although I just goofed it. See that again. Whoa, a little bit goes a long way. So this is actually where a Macintosh operating system is notably superior to a PC operating system. Windows 7, 8, Vista 10, like all those guys do not have a very good magnifying tool as compared to Mac OS, where you can actually like zoom into any part of the screen, which is amazing. So you could go in and then very clearly see what you're doing. So I'm just going to do this. I'm going to lock this right in place with a couple of points without moving it, hopefully. I do not want to move it. Do that. There we go. All right. So we got a couple of points locked in place. Clean that one. Man, I keep wiggling this mouse. All right. Now, are you sure that this one's in the clear? No. You come back. 32, 32, that did it. All right. Now I can, perfect, target that. I see the problem. So this would actually require some masking in advance too. And the reason why is that the tonality, the tonal range on this pack animal, herd animal, I think it's a buffalo, is the same tonality as the tonal range as the grass. And the grass looks fine. You don't want to do anything to it. It's just that the this guy's a little too dark. So what you do is do the adjustment, then come in on a mask, and this is immediately getting pretty complicated, but you got to go through these steps in order to get everything prepared so that you don't have to fiddle with it a whole lot later. Just do it early on. So I'm going to invert the mask so you can't see anything. Control I on the keyboard while the mask is selected. And again, this is just a mask on the curves layer. Come in with my white brush. I'm going to do this 100% opacity, and then just paint back in the contrast there. And you want to do that on all of these little guys. And so it would take a little while, and you just paint that in and you get going. Now you have to be careful not to make it flat. This is kind of a quick and fast adjustment. You can see that it's getting a little crispy right in here. You'd probably want to do it on the higher resolution version of the image if you have that available. And then you go through and you do the adjustments. So let's turn that off. And speaking of which, let's look at the color. My only complaints really are in this dark area. It just gets really too dark, and that just has to do with the black and white adjustment at the beginning. All right, so let's go down this thing. Original photo layer present, check. Black and white photo layer present, check. Colorized layer present, check. The layers are named correctly, yes. There are no more than 3 layers, more or less. You've got some adjustment layers in there that should not be there. No grays, or grays are obviously part of the style. I did not see any grays on my immediate pass through, so good job on that. Colors are contained within the boundaries, so in other words, this buffalo is not bleeding onto the ground. That's the truth. And you have this really nice little green streak going on in the background. That's a really wonderful touch. Colors are under control. It's getting a little close, but I think that the vibrancy works for this image. It doesn't have anything that's just wildly out of place, so I'd say yes. Color range is present in large areas. There's no large flat color. It's getting a little dicey in the grass, just a bit, but I think you pulled it off. It might have been good to come in with maybe a gradient mask and an overall adjustment, slowly paint it in. That leaves some of these alone. This is, I think, the hardest part of the image is all of this grass, because you really want to do things like what you're doing. You're putting in little green specks. These brighter orange specks, the green takes forever, but you balanced it out. I think, well, it probably would have been good to go into a couple of areas and made them a little bit brighter just to match in with the amount of light that they're getting. These poofy grass things, for example, I think that they get a little blended in, but you did a good job in the areas that needed it. So I'd say yes. Contrast is not lost. Well, you did right in this dark area. All right. And any necessary adjustments were made in black white layer. Again, you needed to really go in there and clean up the buffalo cow. I'm not sure what this guy is. And you clean up their shadows. So that needed to be dealt with. So, and that would have happened in the black and white area. All right. And there we have it. So that's where it is. Don't forget to make sure that you have the color profile assigned. Oh, it says it's got it. Oh, that's the working one. And then toss it in, and that would be it. And now we can see that the embedded profile is not some weird undefined thing. It is in fact RGB. Most likely you did this and you didn't save it afterwards. So don't forget to save after you've done that. All right. That's where that's at. Let's see. Wow, that's rolled on to 20 minutes. I guess I had a lot to say about those, so I'll go ahead and close these up. Let's end the video here, and we'll move on to the next group of students. Yeah. All right. See you next video.